guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Mail. So for today, we were a very entertaining email that was sent from a subscriber. This is from a guy, I'm guessing he's probably at this point, maybe he's mid to late 30s, maybe early 40s, he doesn't really say. And he shares his story about 4 years ago when he divorced his wife of 5 years after he caught her red-handed cheating. You're going to see that when this guy catches her, instead of freaking out, losing his cool, he handles it just like a boss in terms of gathering some evidence to get things going, and immediately reaches out to a lawyer. And with the assistance of the lawyer and some very clever thinking on his part, he gets some great evidence. And I might add, plays an incredible practical joke on his wife and her lover that makes the situation even better for him and quite hilarious, I might add. And ultimately, this guy walks away pretty much on a pretty darn good deal in terms of the divorce, and is now doing great with his construction business and all that. And that'd be a really good one, guys, just to show you that once again, beware of those nurses, because his wife is an ER nurse, and the stereotypes about things that happen in the hospital. And of course, you always have to keep your eyes open. Pay attention to red flags, these types of things, because sadly this crap goes on. And of course, taking a long time to get to know your girl before you marry her, etc., etc. And of course, this is just one hell of an entertaining story for a Monday. He says, Hi, my name is David. I recently found your channel, and I have a pretty good story to tell about my ex-wife. Well, we love ex-wife stories on this channel. This happened about 4 years ago. So my wife Kaya and I have been married for 5 years. Thank God, no kids. She was an ER nurse, and I work construction. Our business was just getting off the ground when I noticed it had been a long time since we had any bedroom fun. This was unusual because she was usually a well-oiled machine. Well, at the end of the day, if she's not getting it from you, she's getting it from someplace else. And I might add, if you've been watching this channel for a while, there is certainly the warranted reputation for nurses. I wrote off as stress as money had been tight with me hiring on a few guys to expand my company enough to take on the larger jobs. My wife normally worked 12-hour day shifts, but it wasn't unusual for her to stay afterwards. This was right before COVID took off, so the hospital she worked at wasn't as strict with who was allowed in as they are right now. She worked 3 shifts a week. I worked 5 to 6 days a week around this time, so she had the house to herself 2 to 3 days a week. So if you own your own business, your own contracting construction business, you're at the very least working 5 to 6 days a week, probably more like 7. Probably the day you're not actually on the job, you're doing stuff at home, and probably pulling in at least 12-hour days, 15-hour days. That's what it takes to get ahead, especially in the early part of starting a business. About a week before I caught her for the first time, I just lined up a nice contract to build a couple of quadplexes for this guy that I met at church. They were really straightforward, and our area has been growing fast, so labor has been short. I was able to lock in a nice fat paycheck, or payday. Half paid up front before starting a building, remaining payment on completion of the building. There was also the potential to build more later. Spoiler, I locked down quite a few contracts from him after the divorce. Sweet, bro. But don't ruin the story by revealing too much. So January rolls around, and I was planning on taking the wife to dinner to celebrate and follow up that weekend with a trip before digging in and getting the ball rolling on the first quad. I told her that I had some work coming my way, but I didn't tell her how well off we were going to be after these projects were wrapped up. Well, very smart for you for not revealing that. I mean, probably ordinarily you would, but the timing worked out well. I got home a little early on Friday, and I got cleaned up. I was expecting her home by 8 p.m., and we would have a late dinner reservations for 9 p.m. that night. I told the night before that we were going out to dinner that night, so she was aware of it. Around 6 p.m., she had called me on a break and told me she had to work late. I didn't think anything of it and changed up my plans to surprise her at work with dinner. Well, ultimately, the person that was surprised at work was you. I called the sushi restaurant and canceled our reservations, but placed a to-go order around 9 p.m. I figured she'd want her usual order of miso soup, tuna rolls, and other types of rolls. I'm not a sushi guy, but they have a good orange chicken that goes great with some wasabi. So I picked up the food that night and brought it in. I was going to go to the desk and ask the change nurse when she would get her second lunch break. I have to walk through the cafeteria from the parking garage, and I parked in to get to the ER. When I walked in, I noticed Kaya sitting in the corner already eating with a few people. I was about to walk across the cafeteria and join them when I noticed the guy she was sitting next to lean in and start making out with her. Right there in front of other co-workers, right out in the open. The stereotypes, huh? And if you guys are new to the channel, there's quite the stereotype about nurses and things that go on in medical facilities, hospitals, all that. I've done countless stories on that, countless stories of guys, men and women I might add, who worked in the medical field, reporting that all this is accurate from all over the world. So I was about to run over there and pop him in the face when I noticed that she wasn't pulling away. I was pissed off, but I had never been the type to blow my top, so instead I walked over to the trash can, tossed her food, and went over to the opposite end of the cafeteria. I used the zoom on my camera phone to snap a few pictures without them noticing me, and I went home. Man, that's some serious self-control. A lot of guys wouldn't have been able to hold it, but it's good you did that and got the evidence, because evidence is key, as you're going to see. When I got home, I grabbed a bottle of scotch and poured myself a glass. Who could blame you? I called up my boy Mikey and told him what I saw. Mikey and I go way back. He wouldn't hesitate to break a kneecap on the guy she was sleeping with if I'd asked him to. Well, anybody named Mikey or Joey or Louie or Vinny, I'm sure would be more than happy to break some kneecaps. I told him that I just dropped some money on a weekend trip to a ski resort that was nearby and asked if he wanted to come with me instead and hang out. Like a bro, he called his girl and told her that he was going to be gone for the weekend. Now here's the best part. Mikey's mom is like a second mother to me, and she is a divorce attorney. Hey, how nice. Also, our state is an at-fault divorce state. I called up Kaya right after when her shift was about to end and told her that I had to go out of town to lock down some new contracts. She really couldn't contain her excitement as she hurried me off the phone. So obviously this guy has responded to this instead of breaking down and crying, melting down. He's immediately gone into, okay, it's bring it on, bitch, that type of mode. You know what I mean? I'm sorry it happened, man, but, at least you weren't married to her that long. So Mikey gave his mom, Cindy, a phone call. She's a workaholic and is usually up late at night. He told her what was going on, and she told him to hand over the phone. With no time wasted, she jumped right in and told me not to do anything stupid and do something that I would regret. I told her I had no plan to get physical or to tip my hand. With a chuckle, she said something along the lines of, at least one of you has a decent head on your shoulders, Mikey. Yeah, I couldn't learn a thing or two. You could learn a thing or two. So we took off that night just before she got home and had a bros weekend, divorce the bitch planning session. Good. I'm glad you can get away. It says cheating is a big F no for me, and I'm not going to keep a cheater around, especially now that my business is getting off the ground. The trip was really actually pretty nice. Hitting the slopes was a good way to get my mind out things and mellow out. I got a chance to talk to Cindy, and she gladly took me on as a client. Wonderful. She gave me a big to-do list, and at the top was getting solid evidence of infidelity. I didn't think it was going to be too difficult. I had looked up the douchebag, and he was cheating on me, that she was cheating on me with, on the hospital staff page. He was a new resident with a wife and kid. What a freaking scumbag. It was obvious they were doing it in my home, considering my wife's schedule, and the fact that his wife seemed to be a stay-at-home mom. That's even in your own house. No doubt in your own bed. And I'm sure in her mind, she's probably justifying it like, he works all the time, he doesn't pay attention to me, it's not going anywhere, that type of shit, to justify her actions, and probably to punish you by doing it in your bed, maybe your office chair, the shower, whatever, the couch, anywhere you frequent. Probably your man cave or garage or something like that. The first thing I did was put some cameras in the bedroom and living room that I could check in on. It was easy to set them up discreetly. I also got another cam for the driveway, and on the advice of Cindy, I told my wife about this one. She said the recording in the home with a spy cam would be hard to get admitted into evidence. However, if I played my cards right, I could put one camera up in a way that doesn't deter her from sneaking a guy in. Here's the genius part that Cindy cooked up. If she knows about the camera, and if I put a sign on the door that says audio and visual recording on premises, that anything recorded would likely be admissible. Listen to your lawyer. On our next stretch of time, off, I was sitting in my truck eating lunch when I got a motion alert from one of the cameras. They were in my bedroom. What'd I tell you? The cameras were recording. Now here is where I am a total a-hole. Not on this channel, man. Any guy who says I was an a-hole is a hero. But I sure as fuck don't regret it. We have a killer surround system in our bedroom along with a very nice television. I'm a bit of a home theater nerd and mess around with smart home stuff. Well, my entire setup is controlled by a Fire TV Cube with Alexa. With Alexa, you can create these things called routines. Well, I set one up to mute Alexa, crank the surround sound volume to max, and play a demo clip for the surround sound system that sounds like bombs and guns going off around the room. I see where this is going. I gave them a good amount of time to get busy. I ate my sandwich and checked after a few minutes to see if I had enough. Well, when I looked, I saw that she had the little bitch forearm deep in her back door. She had never done anything like with me, and did that piss me off. Well, no surprise, he's getting some Hershey Highway action with her, or she's getting it with him, and you didn't do any of that stuff. Shocker. With no hesitation, I grabbed my phone, opened the Alexa app, and started up the routine. I put the camera back up, and a few seconds later, the speaker started blaring. I've never in my life seen two people more afraid in my entire life. Chicken Shit looked like he was about to have a heart attack as he tried to get up and run away. Well, meanwhile, his hand is up her ass. Well, in his haste, he rammed his arm forward into her back door. She started screaming, too deep. She was in a ton of pain after that. I was actually feeling pretty bad for her at this point, but after a couple minutes, she started to berate him, and I couldn't help but laugh at the little fucker. I want to feel bad for her. She'll be walking weird for a while. She called him a clumsy fuck for stepping on the TV remote, and then called him a pussy. A couple minutes later, and she was on the ground. Oh, your wife's a real gem, huh? Ex-wife. He says, Pussy Boy, that's the name of her, that's his code name for the affair partner here, then found himself having to take her into the ER, the very same ER that she works at, and he had to tell all of her coworkers that he rammed his fist elbow deep into her back door when he scared himself with a TV remote. I'm sure maybe somehow you could, I don't know, he could have come up with a different story, some way, somehow, aside from his whole forearm up her ass. My cousin's wife is an X-ray tech, and she has told me some stories about objects they have found that got stuck back there on some people over the years, and other interesting stories. Yeah, always good to catch up on these types of stories over Christmas and that type of thing. So apparently he had punched her in the ass so hard that he had perforated her bowel. Luckily, not too badly. She ended up being fine after a surgery and a week of recovery. You know, guys, I've been doing this for a little over 4 years now, and still stories come in that just catch me by surprise, and you just never know. Anyway, they both got fired. Her reputation is ruined, Pussy Boy got divorced, and my evidence was admissible in court. Well, here's the thing. I mean, I don't know why they didn't go to a different hospital. And she's a nurse and he's a resident, so there's always a high demand for them. So unless this is coming from a different country where different standards. No. He said that he's in a no-fault state. So, I mean, at-fault state's okay. I guess he's in the USA, but still. I would imagine nurses and a resident doctor, there's going to be demand for them somewhere. But anyhow. The divorce hearings had to be done remotely because of COVID. The look on the judge's face, as well as my wife's face watching the video of Pussy Boy ram his fist elbow deep in her back door, was priceless. The judge, a 60-year-old dude, was struggling mightily to not laugh his ass off. And my wife and her attorney were seething after that. I got off with no alimony and a clean split of assets. Awesome. And great G-rated friendly material to watch forever. I'm being sarcastic. I kept my business. I got half the equity in the house, and she got to keep her retirement account. A few months later, and I signed a nice contract to build some small apartment complexes. So wonderful. Just when your business starts to really take off, that's when you split. He says, my ex is currently not working. She's stuck with Pussy Boy. I heard through the grapevine from a few work friends of hers that I had gotten to know that after their injury, that SCX is too painful for her now. I can imagine. Pussy Boy got divorced and lost his job. It turns out that Catholic hospitals are not fond of cheaters, and he can't get his work anywhere else. So now they're living together in a rundown rental in a bad part of town, and they're both working at McDonald's. Thank God for good divorce lawyers and good friends. The end. Well, bro, that was a quick but very entertaining story. I'm still having a hard time believing that a resident doctor and a ER nurse can't get employment someplace. He said Catholic hospitals. Okay, fine, but I'm sure they had to relocate out of state. Why in the hell are they working at McDonald's or something or some other place like that? When that's the part of the story. But you never know. Fair enough. But I'm sure at least the doctor could get employment someplace else. But who knows? Fuck them. She'll never walk right the rest of her life. And he got divorced, and I'm sure had his ass reamed. No pun intended for the story here. Anyhow, bro, great story. I'm glad you're doing well. Obviously, with your construction business, keep working your ass off, building wealth and all that. Make sure you have money to put away after everything at the end of the day. Probably won't get married again anytime soon, let alone ever again after all that. But remember, you always have to look for red flags, pay attention to things, and there you go, guys. Yet another story about frolicking in the hospital. It never ceases to amaze me. All right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this, and also let this guy know what you think. And, guys, also, if you have a great story to share, definitely email it to me, strongsuccessfulmale@gmail.com. This is either a really good story from the present or your long past. Also, any good questions you might have for me about any particular subjects in the Ask SSM series. And, of course, any crazy stories you find online that I can do on the other channels, They Did What, and the SSM Clips. And if you haven't joined those channels, definitely take a moment and go subscribe to them. Check out some of the videos. There's definitely plenty, months worth of entertainment at this point on all those channels. And be sure to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.